Imagine spending millions of dollars every year on the single goal of outliving the average person. Imagine a life organized around the pursuit of a longer, healthier future. Daily scans and blood draws, notifications from dozens of apps, a medicine cabinet full of unpronounceable compounds, and a schedule that treats sleep, exercise, and meals like engineering problems to be solved. That's the image people associate with modern longevity optimization. And it's easy to admire the commitment. Figures like Bryan Johnson have pushed the conversation forward by treating the body as a complex system that can be measured and tuned. But there's a blind spot in this approach that deserves a careful, respectful critique. More data and more interventions don't automatically translate into a longer, better life. In fact, they can create new problems we don't talk about enough. Biomarker obsession, more data, more health. It's tempting to think that tracking thousands of biomarkers, proteomics, metabolomics, microbiome profiles, dozens of hormone and inflammation markers, gives you an unfiltered readout of biological truth. The reality is messier. Over-testing creates noise. The more you measure, the more anomalies you'll find, many of which are clinically insignificant. Isolated deviations trigger extra tests, more worry, and sometimes unnecessary interventions. False positives are not a theoretical concern. They cascade into more procedures, more side effects, and often no net gain in health. There's also a psychological toll. Constant monitoring can generate chronic anxiety. Every small variation becomes a potential catastrophe. Orthosomnia, the state where people become obsessed with optimizing sleep metrics to the detriment of actually being rested, is one example of how data can worsen, not improve well-being. When your lived experience is filtered through dashboards, you risk living for the numbers instead of living your life. Biological age clocks, helpful signals, not crystal balls. A growing industry of aging clocks promises to quantify your biological age using DNA methylation, gene expression, proteins, or composite risk scores. These tools are powerful research instruments and can correlate with outcomes at a population level. But taken as definitive answers for individuals, they're premature. Different clocks often disagree, and their predictive accuracy varies by context. Some are better at capturing cardiovascular risk, others inflammation or cellular senescence. Critics rightly point out that we still don't fully understand what most of these clocks measure. Aging is multifaceted, and a single number rarely captures the complexity of a person's health trajectory. Treat biological age estimates as one signal among many, not as an oracle. Over-reliance can lead to false confidence or needless alarm. Supplements. Hope without consistent evidence. The supplement aisle feeds a lot of hope. NMN, resveratrol, metformin in a pill illusions, peptide stacks, and more. Yet the evidence base behind many widely used compounds is thin, mixed, or limited to small or animal studies. We also face enormous variability between products and manufacturers. Supplements are not regulated like medicines in many jurisdictions, which means potency, purity, and even ingredient identity can be inconsistent. What one batch claims on the label may not be what you get in the capsule. That doesn't mean there's no value in any supplement. Some have robust evidence for specific uses. The point is to be honest about which ones do and which ones are experimental, and to recognize that taking many unproven compounds increases the chance of interactions and side effects. The social cost of optimization. There's a human cost to treating health as a full-time optimization problem. When your time, conversations, and choices are constantly filtered through a longevity lens, other values, spontaneity, pleasure, community, curiosity, can be crowded out. Consider the everyday trade-offs, declining a night out because it will disrupt a recovery window, choosing activities based on data points rather than joy, or centering relationships around shared metrics rather than mutual presence. The aspiration to extend life can paradoxically shrink the richness of living now if it turns every decision into a risk-benefit calculation. Health span versus lifespan. Prioritize how you live, not just how long. The single question that seldom gets asked in loud, technocratic ways is, what kind of life are you trying to extend? Pushing the end date of life without attention to mobility, cognition, emotional health, and social connection misses the point. Quality matters. The goal should be to compress morbidity, to maximize healthy, meaningful years rather than prolong the years of decline. A human-centered vision of longevity asks, will these interventions let me enjoy my grandchildren? Will they preserve the capacities that make life worth living? If not, then a narrower focus on lifespan becomes hollow. A constructive critique, not rejection. This is not an argument against ambition or against the people who fund expensive experiments in human health innovation. Rigorous measurement, novel therapies, and a commitment to understanding aging are valuable and have already produced gains. The critique is about balance, humility, and values. Ask for rigorous evidence, demand transparency about trade-offs, and remember the limits of any metric. Pair technological optimism with a recognition that human flourishing isn't reducible to biomarker graphs. Longevity is not about turning people into machines optimized for the longest possible uptime. It's about protecting the things that make life worth living: relationships, curiosity, pleasure, dignity, and the capacity to be fully present. If we keep those values front and center, longevity research can be a means to enrich lives, not a trap that makes life into something smaller.